of the playful banter.
Right.
Listen, I'm Chad.
Right. This is Jeff.
And this is the Catholic Dads Podcast.
That's right. Retooled, reborn, retconned, however you do that, right?
Got 4 years in the making.
Just took a break. We had to get some thoughts together.
So I think we have some topics finally to come.
It
took us 4 years to come up with some topics.
I've been keeping a list, and I've got 2. I don't know how many you've got over the last 4 years that we've thought of, but
yeah, I think I was thinking of one topic a year. Just like
I think that's
pondering it.
I mean, honestly, that's probably all we can fill for 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think, just so everybody knows, we are starting early in the morning because we are Catholic dads. And part of the things we need to do is make sure we take care of all of our other responsibilities. So lunches and early mornings tend to be, maybe the free time might not be the right term, but that's certainly the place that I've got the most stretch in my schedule. So,
yeah, me too.
Lunches for workouts and the occasional catching up at work and all that kind of stuff. And then early mornings tends to be a pretty good time to get together and have breakfast and coffee and I guess record a podcast every other decade.
Yeah. And I like the stillness of the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like it to gather my thoughts and to be like, because let's be real. I mean, this is as a Catholic dad of multiple children. This is the only quiet time that we have.
That's it.
I mean, I guess you can count like driving to work, or your commute, but your commute is. You got to pay attention to the road, usually. So this is like it. Mornings is it.
Yeah, that's it.
And sometimes I wonder, it's like maybe on the weekends I should still set my alarm and wake up and all that. Usually I don't, but but just to be able to enjoy that morning and that quiet time.
Mm-hmm. As the kids have gotten older, certainly, I mean, there used to be a time where all the kids were small and in bed early, so even in the evenings there was a little bit of that. But as the kids age, then that doesn't happen. So really, you're left with the mornings and a little bit of time during lunch if you can get it in. Yeah,
our kids never were early to sleepers. I'm amazed at you people.
we were the early to sleepers, but also the early risers.
Yeah,
especially on the weekends because they don't know what day it is.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I thought what we would maybe talk about this morning first would be, kind of inspiration and how we gain inspiration from our children. A lot of times you think of, well, who's your inspiration? Who's your, quote unquote, who's your hero? Who's your idol? Who do you look up to or whatever? Mm-hmm. And more often than not, that's somebody that's older than us, maybe just a, father figure or, some other relative or maybe even, some other hero throughout history or whatever. But I find that more and more often, I'm looking to my kids for inspiration, so, not to say that they're my hero or whatever, but it's amazing the inspiration that you can gain from your children. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, I think, you always kind of look at your life and look at the kids and the choices and all of that. And there is certainly a plan when it comes to helping all of us, become more holy and doing it together and having the youthful vision of the world where sometimes it can be very deep and complex because they ask those questions and you have to go, let me get back to you on that. Or, you see like just a beautiful act of kindness that just comes from a pure heart and whether that's for a sibling or for a friend, seeing the raw emotion. We've recently lost a very beloved pet, and to have the children go through that experience and just to see that, there's always like a deeper level that you can just see life through when you're doing that with your kids, So whether it's grief or whether it's love or sharing, they're pulling us into that world that arguably, it would be hard to see, obviously, if you didn't have that, right?
Yeah. I mean, even in the scriptures, it says that he who doesn't accept the kingdom of God like a little child shall not partake in it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's something about that childlike quality, be it the wonder or the innocence or whatever. I mean, and that's to me what kind of wraps it up for, a lot of times when I lay down and I'm looking at, Quinn or Dylan as they're finally asleep, there's something special about that moment that a rowdy, rambunctious boy finally just passes out because he's just so tired, or whatever.
Yep.
That it's like finally they're asleep and they're at peace, and it's just there's something about that wonder. I get wonder from observing that. It's like these innocent children are like they embody my family. They embody what it is. It's how do I say it? It's like it's your child is totally dependent on you. It's you have to provide, you have to you have to give shelter, you have to give food. I mean, it's like it becomes that. It helps me personally, it helps me relate better with God the Father, in that it's like my children are relying on me to do these things. So in that moment that I'm observing them as they're finally asleep in bed, or before I go to work if they're still asleep, whenever I'm up, I can relate to the Father better because I see, so that's how God is for me. I rely on Him. And I think a lot of times, we think we have things in our control. We really don't have it in our control. So it's like, how do you give up that control?
I think the other thing that certainly is really difficult to appreciate, if you didn't have those kids in your life, or even a general love of your life, that the love of the Father is so reflected in how you feel about your kids, right? In a small way. And you go through life and you fall in love, but it's really not until you have that precious soul that's in your hands, that's completely helpless, that is, completely loved. You don't know their personality. You don't know, you've just named them, but you already love them to death,
Yeah.
And to get a sense of that, just very, finite love, and then comparing that to what, God has for us is obviously just a way that He's trying to, continually call us back and continually let us know that He's here for us,
Yeah.
The other thing too is that wonder. We get to go. The church has sacraments throughout the life of a child to help bring them into that faith. And as an adult, every time you see a child doing that, you get to walk with them, and it takes you back to that. So as converts that came into the faith as adults, we came to that. We came to communion. We came to reconciliation. We came to all of these sacraments with the adult type of mindset, looking for the theological basis of these things and the intellectual basis of these things, right? Where the kids are just excited, and you get questions about, well, what does the host taste like? And, what if I don't like the, but they're so excited. And we have a little girl that'll be doing First Communion this year. In that first reconciliation, they're so excited about, and you just see they come out with just this, just this grace. I remember each one of our kids after their first reconciliation, their faces are just alight with joy. And I think in the church's wisdom, is adults, we walk with the kids through this, and it's a reminder of how we should approach all of those sacraments as well, right?
Yeah.
It's not all intellectual. If there's a grace and a love and a childlike
joy
that comes to it.
Yeah. I got to admit that I don't recall any of our first penances being excitement. I remember one of our children, who will remain nameless, was crying on the floor. But what's amazing about it, it's like, and you want to talk about like the wisdom of the church. What's amazing about it is he went from crying, literally on the floor, crying, to going in to the confessional, and when he came out, he was radiant with joy.
Yep.
I mean, I got goosebumps just thinking of it.
Yep.
Radiant with joy. Only the grace of God can do that.
Yep.
Only the grace of God can, like a switch. But it's that whole fear versus faith kind of thing. It's like you don't know what's on the other side of that door.
Yep.
You know, it's almost like death. You know, a lot of us, we fear death because you don't know. I mean, you know, you've got faith that, okay, there's heaven, but like, what's it really going to be like? And forever is a really long time. And, But it's what's on the other side of that door, and you don't know, and you can't see, so that fear, but finally you get the courage to cross over into that and to just like kind of abandon yourself to God's mercy. And then he just came out so happy.
Yep.
Just like, it was amazing, It's so much so he's like, I want to go next week.
Right.
I want to go to confession again next week.
Yep.
And then you're like, well, do we let it? I mean, do we go every week?
Yep.
And then, usually our intention is to go. I've got a calendar invite set on my work calendar for the first Saturday of the month. And we don't always hit it like that, but it's like, you're finding that balance where you're like, come on, let's go back so we don't lose that fire. You don't want to lose that zeal, because if you let it go too long, then that cycle repeats itself.
Yep. That's right.
But just thinking about, it's not only in things of the faith that we can draw inspiration from our kids, like this podcast here that we're doing, this morning. It's inspired by my teenager who, he and his friend got together and they decided to do a podcast for sports. And I'm just sitting there thinking, we've got a couple of podcasts, that were pre-recorded 4 years ago.
Yep.
And, how'd you do it? And so I find myself going to my teenager, saying, tell me how you did it.
Yep.
And he's showing me these things, and I can't tell you how much I had to rely on his knowledge of the way things are today, because, we're older and we're set in certain ways, but we're just not exposed to other things, technology or otherwise, that they have a better line of sight to. And so he was walking me through how to, set up the page and do this and that. So, but I think what's amazing about all that is like, it's in God's time. We did that 4 years ago. We recorded those 3, and it's like we planted it in the ground, and it just needed to get some time to grow into what maybe God wants it to be.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm not like under any illusions that what this might become. I'm just saying, for some reason, I think it's the right time right now.
I really think the only goal is to get a shout out on Catholic Stuff You Should Know. I think that's probably all we're going to be going for.
But I think the only way that'll happen is if we send bourbon.
That's right. Oh, okay, I was just thinking about that too. I mean, you can, even on a non-faith based inspiration, you get to see the kids' personalities and their skills and their interests and what they really get into. And you're right. It's a joy to be able to watch that, and especially as the kids are getting older and older, and their personalities develop and their likes and dislikes. Everybody kind of experiences that, and whether it's sports or friends and relationships or whatever it is. I mean, every kid is unique and beautiful, and I've experienced that too. We had my oldest son started journaling spontaneously when he was very young, which I was something, honestly, I've always wanted to do. I see that as a gift to your future self, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of things, maybe that would be another podcast, is like giving gifts to your future self, right?
Yeah.
But having a journal, looking back, going, man, if I'd had a journal to capture all of those things that I'm going to forget, because you forget way more than you'll ever remember about your kids and the way they were growing up and everything else.
Yeah.
That's just a gift to my future self or my future kid self. And here he is doing it, the discipline of a young child.
Yeah.
I can't even approach that level, And they're beautiful. You can go back and you can read them, and the handwriting is hard to read and the spelling is, phonetical, and it's amazing. So yeah, you get that inspiration, and you get the, you get to see a bit too of, at their ages, they have more freedom than we do. And so you can see that and say, okay, you really, let's take this time in your life and do the most of it that you can. This is the time that you've got that freedom to journal before you go to bed and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's definitely fun to see. And each of them in their own way, you can find something amazing about.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's amazing to see them grow, and I think that it's because they have that freedom, whenever you're young, you do have that freedom, that time freedom that,
Mhm.
that as adults we don't necessarily enjoy. So they have the time to sit and write, journal, play music, do podcasts or whatever it is that they're wanting to do their time with. But yeah, I think that being a parent, being blessed with children, has definitely been the single most impactful thing in my life to bring me closer to Christ and closer to God the Father.
Yep.
Because now it brings it into a relatable, just it makes it relatable for me. Now that I know what it's like to care for a child, you can just God is the same way for you, for all of us.
I mean, we wouldn't be Catholic if it hadn't been for our first child, because really, we had our oldest, and she was still a baby, and we were looking for something that would support us as parents in this world, to help her, basically be successful. I mean, that was why we started looking for churches. And, we started with the Catholic faith because it's the oldest and claimed to be, from our mindset, it claimed to be the oldest, because we didn't know.
Right.
And so we joined RCIA and decided, we'll see about this, and if we like it, we'll stay. If not, we'll just go down the street until we find one that we like. And it was really all about just, trying to find some support, in this world.
Yeah.
And, of course, we didn't leave. So, even to that extent, it was our children that brought us to the church, if you want to think about it that way. So.
And that's amazing that you're saying that, because honestly, like for me, and I've said it in my, in my testimony for Acts, it was when Evan was born that I realized that, there's, because I was Catholic growing up. I grew up cradle Catholic. And I would never have said I wasn't Catholic, but my actions and my beliefs really didn't line up with that Catholic faith, with our Catholic faith. But it wasn't until Evan was born that it was like, okay, you got to do something. I mean, we got to have a moral compass, if you will. I mean, you got to have something. And what better way than the faith that you were raised in? Let's take a look at it. And like you're saying, from my point of view, then it was a lot of, what does the church teach on that? Wow, does it really teach that? I mean, is it really the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist, or is it just a symbol? I mean, so I had to relearn all of that, and then make the decision. I mean, say relearn it. Basically, I had to be re-exposed to those teachings, and then, explore for myself. It's like, wow, do I believe this? Because if I do, you don't halfway believe it. You got to believe it. You got to be all in.
Yep.
And so it was definitely a journey. So yeah, there again, children bringing us closer to the faith.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good stopping point.
I like it.
What you think?
Good. Yeah.
Cool. Good first podcast back. And
Gonna stretch those muscles a little bit and probably be a little bit sore tomorrow, but
exactly.
We'll be all right.
Yeah. We do have an email, catholicdadspodcast@gmail.com, and we do have a Facebook page.
Like us on Facebook.